Hey! I'm Cooper.
And I'm Karen.
You're listening to
You Want Me to Do What?
A conversation between a millennial trainer, that's me, and his boomer client.
That's me.
As we take our gym floor conversations to the recording studio.
Listen in our informative conversations where we'll guide you through 4 phases of habit change, from contemplation to maintenance and beyond.
Through each episode, learn about the intersection of generations and discover how, at the end of the day, we're more similar than we realize.
Grab a front row seat to our sometimes hilarious stories about our personal experiences as we move through each phase.
Join us as we reflect on our unlikely friendship, our cultural differences, and certainly that big age gap.
We hope you see it's never too early or too late to be your best self. So if you're considering making changes to your health or fitness, or you've already started, this podcast is certainly for you. Welcome.
So last episode, we explored phase 1, contemplation. When you're just beginning to think about making a change, when you're teeter-tottering on the pros and cons of starting to prioritize your health more, and judging whether or not it's worth the effort. In this episode, good news, bad news, we'll discuss the second phase of habit change and what that might look like if you're in that situation. So if you've already made the commitment to change, then you are beginning to make your transition into the second phase, preparation and determination.
And Cooper, in preparation and determination, like, this is where you might be saying to yourself, I've got to do something about this, whatever this is, whether it's your physical activity, your nutrition, your sleep. It's something that's serious enough where it's coming to mind that it has to change, and you're at the point to try to figure out, what can I do? This is kind of your research phase. You're gathering information. Sometimes you're reading things or listening to podcasts like this about what you need to do to change your behavior, or you're checking out websites or organizations and resources that are available to help you in that attempt. Too often, people skip this phase, believe it or not, this stage, and they try to move directly from contemplating into action and just fall flat on their faces because they haven't adequately researched or accepted what it's really going to take to make major lifestyle changes happen.
And that makes sense. You know, we kind of, want it yesterday. A lot of the time, we want that instant gratification.
Or sometimes you just wake up and you're at this high level of motivation.
And you're like, ready to go. Let's do it now. Let's do it now.
It's like now or never kind of of a moment.
Right.
But that's really setting yourself up for I'd hate to say it, but it's setting yourself up to fail.
No, yeah. I mean, I've had many clients
come in the door like that.
Come in the door with, like, wanting to start a training regimen or whatever, who have never touched weight before.
Wow.
And then, a week or two, we were really good. And then, work picks up, or, a spouse or a kid or whatever gets sick and they have to skip.
You know what I call that? Week. Life starts lifing.
Yeah. And then the week after, I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. We'll reschedule, whatever, no problem. And then we'll try and get them back in, and then something else will come up, and then we'll try and find a new time, and then that time may work sometimes, the times may not work sometimes.
And this is the episode where we really kind of get into a lot of really doing the best you can to set yourself up for success.
Yeah,
because life will start lifing.
Yeah, so if you don't do your proper research, not only in the kind of service you may want, but also proper research into your own habits and your own lifestyle,
and just what you realistically can do. Right,
like can you set aside time?
Exactly. Sometimes you can't set aside all that you think you should set aside, so then you do nothing, whereas something is always better than nothing.
That's right.
The other part of this conversation, and I know you're going to touch on this, is just we have a really sobering statistic here.
The bad news is that starting at age 30, so kind of right where
you are,
the body loses about 3 to 8% of its muscle mass per decade, and it only accelerates after around where kind of you are.
I know,
a little bit.
It accelerates after age 60, so
convenient.
It's very interesting. Like, when you're on the younger end of this, just knowing that kind of information might help you figure something out or stick to something a little bit more, because the body's going to do what the body's going to do.
All right, so last time we talked about my background and my relationship with fitness. In this episode, we are going to dive into your experience, your wellness stories. So, you lost about 19 pounds in the first 20 or so months when we worked together, right?
Yes, that's right.
What if at our first meeting, I told you it would take over a year to lose 19 pounds? Do you think that you might have walked right out the door thinking there's no point in starting this? Because if I remember correctly, that weight loss was a major motivator for you starting out in the weight room, right?
Yeah, it was a huge motivator. I don't know that I would have done anything any differently, because at that point, Cooper, I was just really ready to do whatever I needed to do. Mm-hmm. Weight loss was and is still a major factor for me with the habit changes that I've made and I'm keeping in place. So I don't think I would have walked out at that moment. I was just really open to the process, and I had my mind ready to just do whatever had to be done.
That's good to hear. I definitely think you're probably in the minority, because for the most part, you did research.
I looked at a lot of things, but I had done personal training before the pandemic. So I already knew the benefits of that. Mm-hmm. I literally enjoyed it so much. I liked strength training. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel like a badass. Mm-hmm. You know, getting muscles and pushing weight. It's a great feeling. I missed that. Even before the pandemic, I didn't have all the reasons pushing me that I had when I met you. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's amazing what 2-3 years can do when you're middle-aged. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had some diagnoses that I didn't have prior to the pandemic, you know. I knew I wanted to get back to it, but I was even more motivated because I was in, like I said, pain and discomfort from some joint issues that I started to have.
Yeah, it's interesting how you already had that foundation. Mm-hmm.
I did.
How the benefits of activity and whatnot. But for some people maybe listening right now who have never had personal training, you said that if I had told you it would take you a year to lose 19, 20 pounds, right? You would be like, okay, it's fine. You know what to expect.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? If I said that to somebody who had never been in the gym before, right?
It would be discouraging.
It would be very discouraging. And
very discouraging.
I mean, that's the realistic expectation. Yeah. Especially for people who are untrained.
Yes.
Right? For newbies, gaining weight is a little, like gaining muscle, I should say, is a little bit easier than losing the weight.
Oh, heck yeah.
Especially if they've lived a long time in a certain lifestyle, right? And not have to actually think about how they eat, right? Or move.
Yes.
It's a big mental shift to go through.
Yeah.
So hearing a professional tell you that, now I would never tell anyone this, obviously. Yeah, you would. These are not things that I would tell my clients. It would scare someone. I don't want to scare people away.
It would make them just feel defeated already.
Right, but I'm saying it here.
Yes.
Because this is part of your research phase. If you are in phase 2 right now, you are doing research. Right. A big reason that I want to do this is to prepare someone
for the reality.
Like you, if you're listening and you're thinking about what the next step for you is to get healthier, become your better self. This is something that you should go in being okay with, like you were, right? It was unspoken between us. I didn't need to tell you it would take that long to lose that weight.
Yeah, because there were so many other parts to how that was even going to happen.
That's right.
I wasn't at a weight loss clinic.
That's right.
I was there to strength train.
That's right.
And that was going to be a byproduct of the things that I was doing. So, yeah, I wasn't hyper focused on it, but I wanted it to be part of the result from putting in this time with you.
That's right. Yeah. So when you're going in and researching, what kind of gym, what kind of training service, if that is the right move for you to make, right? Allow yourself that time.
Yes.
Right? It's not going to happen in the first 8 weeks.
No.
Right? It may not even happen in the first 6 months, right?
Absolutely.
Unless you are completely on board with making the complete switch to tracking or being aware of all your calories you're consuming, of getting 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 steps a day from day one, drinking a gallon of water a day from day one.
It's not realistic. It's not something that you should expect a professional to say to you.
Right.
These are all gradual pieces of what you'll do, honestly, over the course of 12 to 18 months.
And that's okay.
And that's how it should be.
That is totally fine. Like, I see a lot of stuff on social media stuff. Lose 30 pounds in 4 weeks or get summer shred. Those are so short based.
Yeah.
Right? It's very limited. Right? Because ultimately we want to create a better lifestyle.
And I think this is really interesting when it comes to millennials and boomers. Your group of people would really go towards that.
Right.
Like younger people, because they can see all these results quicker. It's just simple science. You can see results quicker, which my group, that is, we all know it's nonsense. And we all know that we're up against completely different things at this season, as they say, in your life. So I can see, for your group of millennial men and women, absolutely, that would be very attractive because it's something that's obtainable. Maybe it's not sustainable, but it certainly is obtainable.
Right.
With us, it's not either.
Right.
There's nothing there for us to think that everything's going to be a quick turnaround.
Also, it's not necessarily just about the weight you gain benefit from when you got back onto it, right? There was more than just losing the weight.
Just being able to move, being able to walk without pain. Osteoarthritis is a pain. It's literally a pain in the neck. I mean, but for me, it was a pain. It was a pain in my knees. And honestly, the motion is lotion. And people with arthritis might be familiar with that from physical therapists. But I needed to get into motion just to ease that part of it. I was fortunate enough to be a person that really worked for me.
Right.
Some people have to have surgery. Some people have to have surgery sooner. Some people can delay surgery. I fortunately I'm a person that could delay it. I mean, the more active I got, the better I felt. And the stronger the support was on those joints. So I was like, amen, sign me up. Like, this is the road I'm going to take with it. That was the biggest plus. I didn't really expect that to be so good, and it's so good.
You also knew that motion is lotion, but you knew the difference between the bad pain and the good pain.
And there is a difference.
There's a big
difference. And it does
difference.
take your body, it takes you some time to be able to distinguish that.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I can't even describe it really. You just know when you've done this for a while. And I'm talking months, folks. Like, this is not days and hours. This is like when you've pretty much gotten to a good consistency with what you're doing as far as activity.
Right.
With a trainer or just with yourself, you really start to know. But everything takes so much time.
Yeah. And I hate when clients sometimes, it just right in the middle or like a year in of our trainings together, they'll be like, something happened where the other day a client happened where she could like barely, after a really hard leg workout we had, she, went home and like sat for 8 hours. And then the next day she was like, could barely walk. Yeah. Because there was just that sciatic nerve just like crushing her. God. That's the worst. That is the worst. But you can't have a good workout and then sit down and not move around, right? Because stuff like that can happen. Yeah. And I don't like hearing when clients are deterred from moving because of pain. They're in pain. And I get like, obviously I don't want you to hurt. If moving hurts, I don't want you to do that. But at the same time, the more positive reinforcement we can give to movement being a source of making you feel better, we need to encourage that. So like, if you're feeling that really bad kind of pain, right, then obviously don't do it. Right. Don't work through it. I'm guilty of that, and it was worse for me. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It takes longer to heal. It's the good kind of pain you get from training or muscle fatigue or soreness, right?
Yeah, you just sore.
Move around, get that blood going, right? You'll feel better.
And that's something nobody talks about, like the good pain. This isn't all a negative journey.
Yeah. But going back real quick to habit change, something really hit me when you told me that you had on purpose ate a bunch of crappy comfort foods that you used to kind of go back to like beforehand. Right.
Gosh, yep.
When you were like feeling bad or whatever, you would have those things. But when you ate them, you didn't get any pleasure from them And you said that really shocked you.
I'm sure somebody out there can relate to this, but when I get frustrated, typically sometimes what I want to do is throw myself a little pity party. And I think I was having a pity party because I wasn't progressing the way I thought I should at some, workout that we were doing, whatever, and my weight loss had really started to slow down, which I now know that's just what it's going to be with me. I get frustrated. And typically what I'll do is I'll go towards something that, used to make me feel good. And for me, that's stuff like, donuts or my caramel ice cream, just the whole shebang. And I did that. I was like, screw it. I'm just going to have what I want to have this weekend and comfort myself in that way. But it was kind of shocking that it wasn't, my taste buds had changed because I was over a year into, eating so much cleaner now. So my taste buds were different. So it didn't quite taste the same. And they do talk about that happening. And I did experience that. And then it was kind of sad too, because it used to make me so happy. It was the weirdest sensation. It was just like, I used to go, I'm doing it and we're going to do it. It's going to be great. And nothingness that time. That was the first time after making all these changes that I realized, wow, I've done a shift. Like I think I said to you, I turned a corner. I think that's the way I phrased it. It was like, I am becoming different.
The old Karen, right?
Yeah,
would have taken pleasure from that.
Yeah, and it was, think about it. That's what I've done most of my life. It's very interesting. Like that's why I went back to it. That was my friend.
That was your baseline.
I go to Baker's Dozen Donuts here in Raleigh, and I'd get my donuts, and it would just be like a wonderful thing. It just didn't hit the same.
But you're different now.
That was eye opening.
You have evolved.
I was like, I've turned a corner.
So another interesting thing that I also observed in our time was when we were together, we had been training for 2 hours a week.
Yep.
For quite a while.
Yeah.
And then I asked you at one point, you'd come in and you were expressing some kind of frustration over something or whatever.
Yes.
And I said to you, well, what are you doing with the other time that you're not with me?
Yeah.
Right? So you have about 166 hours, which is about 10,080 minutes when you are not in the gym with me.
Right.
During the week.
And
that's a lot of time.
And you had given me homework assignments. There were things that you did ask me to do in between our sessions. It wasn't like it was so much that you were asking me to do. It was just important for me to have these things to do, to work on form, very gentle exercising. That was the moment when you said, seeing me twice a week is not going to do it. Like these 2 hours a week with me is not going to do everything that you're expressing to me you'd like to have happen. And that's when it hit me that 90% of changes are on you, even when you're working with professionals.
With me, it's more of a check-in.
It's following a plan so that you have progression. When you work with a professional, there is an actual plan that you follow and improve in a way that will actually happen. It's not random. But 90% of it is you. And I just didn't know. I had no idea like how much I was going to have to put into what I said I wanted. It was no magic bullet because I went and got a person to work with me a couple times a week. 90% of it was done outside of being with you.
Yeah.
And that's basically all of it.
Yeah. So, and this is a really good thing to prepare yourself for as well.
Yeah.
Like your trainer or whoever is not going to necessarily be there with you all of the time.
They won't be there with you all the time. And so much is going to depend on you doing the things that they ask you to do to help yourself along. That's
right. They're there for also answering questions. Yeah. So if along the way, whether it's doing exercises at home or questions about, food choices, which is I wish my clients would ask me more about. Text them. If they say, text me, feel free to text me. If they don't give you a time range, text them whenever you have a thought, right?
And that's great. And honestly, all trainers are so good with getting back to you when you're navigating things on your own.
Yeah.
They're all so good about it.
Don't be
it's
afraid to
amazing.
ask.
Yeah.
Because if you're the point of having someone like that is to help you through
Yes.
confusion.
Right.
Right.
They're a resource for you.
Right. Like with my own coach, I sometimes feel like I'm annoying them
Really?
because I ask a lot of questions.
Wow.
Because I know how important it is for it to have clarity
Yeah.
on both ends.
Yeah.
And if I don't ask those questions, my coach may not necessarily have the foresight to give me the information without the prompting.
They absolutely would not.
Right?
They absolutely.
I mean, there are some things that I would not think of telling my clients unless they asked me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where they're at.
Yeah.
in
We,
their-
we had a lot of conversations like that when we'd be on the gym floor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you would just, because you were just taking me through my plan. And sometimes I felt like, well, I think I could do more with this piece right here. And you'd say, okay, well, I didn't have that plan for you till next week, but you want to go for it? Or sometimes I go, I don't feel confident with this right now. And it was that, those adjustments that you would have never known if I didn't speak up. So a lot of it is communication and working with a trainer or even working with a nutritionist. These are things that you're investing in. Be that advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Be that advocate for your habit changing. This is a big hill to climb.
Yeah, it really is.
And if you reach out and you're at the point where you're really ready to do this, take advantage of all the resources that are at your disposal.
Yeah.
Use everything.
That is kind of following along the origins of why we called this podcast what we call it.
Yeah.
You want me to do what?
Yeah, like you want me to do what?
Right.
I mean, I think one of the first times I said that to you was literally in one of these conversations where you were giving me a home goal, and it wasn't anything outrageous. You asked me to work up to 5,000 steps a day, and to me that sounded almost insurmountable. And you said to me very nicely, "Well, what else are you doing? Just walk around your house."
5,000 steps is not that much.
But in my mind,
Really?
it was just so. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it just seemed like, he wants me to do the little homework and he wants me to get these steps in. And it's just you in your own head, because honestly, almost 2 years later, 5,000 steps I can have in, by lunchtime. So it really, but it's just all those things that you have to allow yourself to work through. Did I hit 5,000 steps most of the week? No. That's okay. I would do 3,500. I would do 4,000. Eventually I got to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But it was just like, I didn't feel like I was failing or anything. I just felt like, well, that's something I need to focus on, put some energy into.
Progressively getting better, which is a concept in weight training that we talk about a lot, is progressive overload. Right?
Yes.
Progressively getting stronger or lasting longer, right? Depending on the exercise you're using. So that progressive overload applies to habit change too, right?
Oh, gosh.
So, start out drinking 20 ounces of water a day, right? Which is the average blender bottle amount of water. And then, after...
you might do that for 4 or 5 months.
Right.
Like, literally, this is such a process to undo everything you've done to this point, whether you're 30, 50, or 60. You're literally undoing just what you've been doing, and that is not an overnight thing. When you're in the preparation phase, it's a wonderful place to be, but be very realistic with yourself and be very gentle with yourself.
If you're seeing yourself in any of this that we've been talking about, it's important to give yourself a kind of a jumping off point and a way to organize your thoughts by getting honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like we talked about last time, setting realistic expectations and asking yourself, is the price of the change, right?
Yeah.
Worth, the outcome?
The effort.
And then also what you can ask yourself is, if you continue doing what you are doing, where are you going to be in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah.
If you do make these changes, where are you going to be in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How much better off or least likely worse off will you be in the future if you do make these changes?
Right. And I think most people, they already kind of know the answers to that, particularly when they're at the age group that I'm in, we understand the things that we can do to live better. It's not necessarily, we're not trying to be 30 again, but there's certainly things that we can definitely do to live better and more comfortably at this point, because so much is going on typically.
And that's really important too, is not wanting to be an age that obviously you can't be anymore, right?
Yeah. It's just trying to live well. I think that's the best way. I always thought about it was like, I want to live well. You don't bounce back as easy now. While I was contemplating, which was the first phase we talked about, I was painfully aware that I was not willing to jump out there and just start trying a million different things. Listen, I'm old. I'm past the middle age point. So I wanted to talk to some people, look at some things, and make sure that I was getting professional guidance with the issues right out the gate. That was really important to me. So here's what I'll say about getting ready to change. For me, it started with the diagnosis of a very painful sciatica that brought to light just how inactive I had been. And it is amazing the way that we sit for work and the way that we sit for hours. It's everybody I know has sciatic pain. Unfortunately, I knew that I needed to stretch or do something because I was stiffer than I had ever been. So in my research, it landed me at a place called Stretch Lab, and Stretch Lab is a pretty nationally known franchise. And I had a privilege of working with the lead flexologist there, whose name was Maddie. Immediately, I started to feel better. Of course, she's, moving me in areas that just hadn't been moved.
Love Maddie, by the way. She's great.
Listen, if you sit all day, investigate having a professional flexologist stretch you. It's worth its weight in gold.
I also used to work at Stretch Lab.
That's right, you're a flexologist.
Which is the small world of how this whole thing happened.
My sciatic pain was easing as I was going to Stretch Lab. I actually signed up and went weekly. So I really just started to see results from that straight away. So as about a few months in, I realized, I was like, wow, I would love to get back into, working with a personal trainer. So I just was on the table being stretched one day, and I asked Maddie, I said, Maddie, do you know a personal trainer, somebody that I could contact, to talk to about setting up some sessions? And without hesitation, she says, yes, I know just the person. He actually was a flexologist there. His name is Cooper. I went home, called you right away, set up a time to meet you. And the funny story is, I remember this so well. When I first walked into the studio, the strength training studio where you were so surprised to see me because you thought we were having a phone consultation. And I was like, nope, I'm here.
Nope.
Nope.
What's up?
I'm here. It's like, hey, I'm Karen. I was so excited to get there that day. It was kind of cold out. I remember it. I think I was wearing boots or clogs or something. Yo, I didn't even wear sneakers to a workout consultation. Duh. So I was so nervous and excited. And I had literally been thinking about this appointment all night that it didn't even cross my mind that I might be doing some kind of an assessment or something. Like,
surely not.
It didn't cross my mind. And I walk in there, but thank God I wore socks, because I'm notorious for not wearing socks. But thank God I went there and I wore socks, because yet sure enough, Cooper was like, well, let's do a little assessment.
Obviously.
I was like, okay.
You got to see how you move.
But here's the other thing, and I'm talking to people who have not gone to a gym or worked with a trainer or anything. When I walked in that door, trust me when I tell you, it was intimidating. I mean, I'm just going to be real. It had been a long time since I was last in a gym of any type. And mind you, this was a private gym by appointment. And there were some very serious looking folks working out and doing all the things. So I didn't even care. I looked around. I was like, I don't care. I belong here. I'm going to just meet this person, talk to him, and see what kind of vibe I get, and we'll go from there.
The gym is called Capital Strength and Conditioning, by the way, if you're in the Raleigh area and you want to come get personal training. And
it's fantastic too. So Cooper was like, okay, well, go ahead and take your shoes off. I'm going to do some movement assessment. I mean, when we started the assessment, and this assessment is like swing your arms, swing your legs. This is nothing fancy. I could barely swing my legs back and forth. That's how locked up and stiff I had become over the course of the pandemic. It was embarrassing.
Use a WD-40.
I shocked myself because I was seriously trying. oh, I could do this. This is easy. That was another like aha moment. Like, oh my God, yeah, you made the right decision to get here. Cooper seemed professional and nice enough. So I said to myself, I'll give it a shot. Cooper asked me about my goals, how many times a week I felt comfortable coming in. We went over the schedule, pricing, etc. So really in my preparation phase, and in this phase 2, for me, it was addressing, some physical conditions that I had more so than actually gathering a lot of information or reading up on stuff. Mm-hmm. I had a little bit of experience working with trainers in the past. My journey with Cooper began with asking for referral so I could move things forward and, move things towards what I knew I needed to do. So if you know someone who's going to a gym, or someone who you kind of admire what they're doing, or ask them questions about where do you go or what do you do, and that's a good place to start also. And just if you work with people who are in a medical field, or you have neighbors
and they would love to hear you ask about that, one, because they noticed that you're doing things, and that's going to feel good to them, and two, because I tell this to my clients a lot, that what you're doing about yourself and how you're changing your own life is not just going to affect you. So like, this was years ago when I was teaching an older gentleman how to swim, and he, I think it was a week or two after, and when we came to our session, he was like, man, like, I feel so good. Like, I was able to play with my kids, like, a lot more. And they noticed, they were like, oh my God, like, you're hanging around, you're keeping up more. And I was like, I never actually at that point, earlier on in my training career, had realized that it affects everyone else around you. It does. What you change about yourself. Oh, yeah. Because people are going to notice. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be happy for you. Yes. For about a second.
Yes, for a second.
And then they're going to think about themselves. It's very right true. After that, and be like,
that is such a true statement, because everybody wants to do something more, better for themselves. It's just being in this world.
And that's a normal reaction, right? So be a role model for the people around you in your circle. Right? Yeah. Because they may either heckle you for, oh, why did you get like grilled instead of fried, or why did you get water instead of beer? Yeah. But just be like, that's because I wanted to.
Just what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Yeah. So many of my friends right now are in the same boat, and when they see me, it's so nice, and I'm so humbled when they say, you're looking good, or you're looking fit, or you just look really healthy. That's probably the nicest thing that I've heard, that I was surprised that the people noticed the difference. I wasn't ever thinking about that or feeling that. I just wanted to feel good and look good for myself. But the compliments certainly were a surprise. But it's nice for that they recognize, just the kind of the work that you're putting in. It does kind of help you go another day, if that's the best way to say it. But it definitely does help you.
Compliments help. Yeah. We spend enough time. If you're past this phase and in later phases and been doing this for a while, we get in our heads a lot. And we don't realize how much we're progressing. I'm just as guilty as everybody. It's hard to see your own forest through the trees unless
you never think that you're doing enough.
Right?
You always could have done more. That's really hard too.
Yeah, that's something to remember as you're in this preparation phase. It's not always obvious how much you're improving as you go on.
Yeah, you just kind of are doing. You're just kind of doing the work. I noticed, so many of my close friends are stuck somewhere in between contemplation, which was phase 1, and preparation, which is now phase 2. It's that scary place of, and this is one of the most famous. This is my favorite quote. It's a scary place of what you're not changing, you're choosing. And yes, it's an overwhelming spot to be in. I mean, the whole thought of changing, especially if you're not active, or you have lots of work or personal stress. A really big reality for us boomers are caring for aging parents, or helping to raise and care for grandchildren. If you identify with any of these situations, you're probably not eating well. Maybe you're drinking a little more than you should. And of course, all these things affect the quality of your sleep. So, I mean, there might be so much that you want to change at this point in life that it may actually just kind of screw you up and get you frozen, where you just don't start anything, because it's so many parts of it that you want to affect that it just kind of shuts you down. It's just figuring out the stuff that really at your age you can do. Like, realistically, don't sign up to go to somewhere 5 days a week if you haven't done anything in 15, 20 years.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
Just take it easy. But
1 to 2 days to start out with.
1 or 2 days is fantastic.
Probably a good point. Yeah.
It's sustainable.
That's the thing. That's the word. People, you need to print that word out and paint it on your walls. Sustainability.
Yeah. I mean, consistency just comes over time. Just picking something that you can sustain, and something you're actually not going to hate.
And this phase, you can explore different things, right? You can explore different styles of weight training. You can explore different classes or ways of eating. And you should
explore. That should be part of this phase, is exploration.
Right.
Even if it sounds a little bit interesting, give it a shot. If you don't like it, don't go back.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10, you're going to land on something that you do look forward to going to.
If I was made or forced to go to, like a CrossFit gym, right? Nothing against CrossFit. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Right? I wouldn't go. I wouldn't work out, because that's not my style of training that I like to do.
Yeah.
Right? And vice versa, right? They may not want to come, do bodybuilding style training with me.
That intimidates a lot of people.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just fine. It's just like, find your thing, but find your thing by trying some things. Don't poo-poo stuff without, trying it. And the reason that you don't want to just jump out there on your own, especially at 50 or 60 years old, because the time you have is precious, and having a plan when life gets lifey is how you're going to keep going and progressing and being able to sustain it, is when you have that guidance and somebody to navigate you through those moments where you just feel like, I can't. You have somebody that can navigate you through that and help you stay on your path. I mean, you'll drop the ball, but remember, when you drop that ball, that too is progress. Because you were doing something. You can't drop the ball if you don't have the ball.
Ooh.
So
I like that.
Like, I literally, when I talk about giving yourself like grace and having patience, dropping the ball means you were actually doing something. And I get so empowered by, like, if I screw up now, so what? Took me 60 years to do these habits. It might take me 6 to undo. But the fact that I screwed up meant I was doing something. And I really just kind of chill from that.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how that whole thing happened.
I like that a lot. A lot of this comes down to, like, not forcing progress.
Yes.
Not only getting ahead of yourself, but not getting in over your head.
Yes.
Right? Not trying to force change.
Yeah.
And there is this really interesting piece of Chinese philosophy that I really like. I'm going to do my best to summarize it. There's a lot of good videos on, like, YouTube and whatever you guys can go watch about it. It's this philosophy called Wu Wei. Wuwei. This really embodies the aspect of this whole conversation we're having about hurrying up and slowing down. Yeah. Right? Where you can't necessarily force change to happen. So if you imagine, like, a stream, like a river, right? And there are rocks in the river, right? So the rocks, right, are not trying to necessarily actively stop the river from flowing, right? The river is just going to follow gravity down to the sea or wherever, right? And the river is not necessarily actively trying to erode the rock, right? The erosion happens just over time and naturally, right? And that rock will eventually go away. So instead of trying for the water to, like, actively push into every little crevice and, like, actively do something, if water could do that, right? It does what it naturally is supposed to do, right? So it's this thing where follow what seems natural to you at first, right? And then as you continue to explore what you like, then follow that path more.
Yeah.
If tennis, for example, seems like something you're interested in, well, explore tennis a little bit. Don't try and master it in a week, right? Just take a few classes, make a few friends, have some fun, whatever. If you like it, then keep doing it.
Right.
If you don't like it, well, then stop. So it's this idea of taking action while being actionless. So if action is reaction, then non-action would be more of a reflex. You can build a reflex because a reflex is instinctual.
Yes.
Right? It happens without thought.
Yes.
Right? Like when you stand up, right?
Yeah, or when a doctor hits your knee with that
it hits
little
your knee, you
mallet.
do the little thing, right? Exactly.
Yes.
Right. When a glass is falling onto the floor,
Yes.
you grab it.
Right.
Right. That is that. Some people may call that a reaction, but it's actually more of a reflex.
Yeah.
You instinctively want to grab that without thought.
Yeah.
Right. So I think non-action reflex is more of a non-thought,
Yeah.
an instinctual thing, and reaction or action is more of something that is more purposeful.
Yeah.
Or in something you may force.
Yeah,
right?
that was interesting. The first time you told me that, I had never heard about that theory at all. But another major thing in my preparation phase, this is major, was I had the feeling that I never, and they say never say never, but I never wanted to start any journey of changing habit again. I wanted to just begin and just go and go and go and go until the habits were their place of where I wanted them to be. I didn't ever just want to abandon all this work and then have to climb up that mountain again like I did after the pandemic. That kept me going in some of the hardest times where I just didn't feel like it, was having a bad day, where I let my mood overcome my goals. That whole theory, like, you might be having a bad day right now, but you're not going to stop this, because starting this again is just ridiculous.
You were taking action without being active with it.
Right, exactly.
This is your default now.
Yeah. That is my default now. It's like, okay, this is a rough patch or whatever, or things aren't moving the way I would like them to, or it's winter time. I think I have seasonal sadness issues or whatever, because January had 88 days in it for me this year, and it just was so hard to go walking and doing all those things for when the sun is out and it's warm and it's great. And I was like, okay, well, you're just kind of off track this month, but you're not off track forever. You will never just stop doing the things. Maybe you're not doing them 90% of the week. Maybe you're at 70,
right?
But they didn't just fall away.
Right.
Because I will not let that happen. It's just too much to conquer again. And I always joke with you about how much runway is left in life. I'm like, listen, I'm more than halfway up the runway. I can't keep going backwards. So, in this preparation phase, just remember, folks, it's gonna be up and down and all over the place like a roller coaster. And that is really what it's meant to be. You're undoing a lifetime of who you've been to be something better for moving forward. So it's gonna be it's a lot.
But you recognize that the efforts you're making, right, are worth
completely
what you're putting in.
The alternative to doing nothing with motion and nutrition, the alternative is bleak.
So if you weren't enjoying it, but you were still forcing yourself to do it, right? That would be against.
Yeah, and I couldn't sustain that.
Your nature, right?
Yeah, because at this point in life, I've done stuff like that. That's kind of been the way you did stuff. Back in the 80s and the 90s, we did, the step aerobics classes, and I've done all kinds of weight loss programs where I was eating supplements and things and not whole food. I've done a lot of stuff that I wasn't thrilled about, thinking this is going to get me what I want. And then yet still here I am now, literally just, turning the corners on habits that will take me all the way.
That's
So
right.
That's kind of just how most of us have always done things.
Right. So if you accept that you want to keep going,
Yeah.
right, and that it's worth all of the effort, then you're doing the non-action, right? You're taking action while being actionless,
Yeah.
right? Because the effort you're doing is worth whatever frustration.
Yeah.
Because you
whatever
have
it
no
is.
choice,
Right.
right? On the opposite hand, if the effort was not worth the choice,
Right.
but you were still doing it because your doctor told you to, or
Yeah.
because your wife or husband or whatever
Yeah.
were telling you to, that would be a reaction or action, which would be forcing it, which would be against your nature, which is not going back to this wu-wei concept. That would be against what your natural thing is. So as you're going through this research phase, right, think about things that naturally draw your attention,
Yes,
that you're
that's
interested
so
in.
smart.
Start
Yes.
there, and then see where that takes you, right?
Yep.
Because it needs to be worth the effort that you're going to
Yes.
put in. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to erode that rock
Right.
without any actual effort.
And this is another thing I'd like everybody to think about as you prepare for change. You've done contemplating it, like it's a new year, whatever for you, and you're really ready to start. Ask yourself some of these questions. Where am I right now, and what is my comfort level moving forward? And if you have a way to type this into your phone or write these questions down, this is some really good stuff to ask yourself right now because you're ready to go. Ask yourself, could I benefit from private instruction? Does the idea of having a plan give me relief? Does that really make me go, oh, I would love that? Would I be good going into a public gym or using the machines on my own? Or would I feel better in a group setting? Like, just, your personality at this point. You know how things work for you. That might be a place to start you investigating things by asking yourself that question. The other thing is, ask yourself realistically, what can you get behind and commit to start making changes? If it's doing one thing, great. Like my sister was telling me, she decided she has a very, very stressful job in a big corporation. And she said she just decided when their stress level gets really high, about 2:30, 3 o'clock after all the morning meetings, that she's going to just get out of her chair. And this campus she's on has a beautiful workout facility.
Ooh.
She says, I'm going to walk to the gym and do 10 minutes on a treadmill.
Beautiful.
And she was like, that is something I decided that would not only benefit my stress midday, but it also is moving me towards the goal I want to become more active and not so sedentary. And it took her months to figure that out. But she's like, that's something I could get behind. I can get up and go for 10 minutes. Not 30 minutes, not even 25 minutes. She said, I can do 10 minutes.
What's 10 minutes?
And to come back, focused to end the rest of her day. I love that when she told me that was what she came up with for herself. She had to be realistic with herself. They had to come up with something that she knew she could get behind.
That's right. It's a small change.
It's a small change, but it's so positive because it deals with stress and it deals with, 10 minutes where she's just not sitting at that monitor. So, ask yourself some of those questions. And then after that, get comfortable with the reality that this whole process, no matter which way you're going, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's just pure and simple. You're going to be in a new environment. You're going to be interacting with new people. You're going to be with people whose lifestyles are already different. Their lifestyles are what you want yours to be. So it's a little intimidating. They're a little ahead of you. So what? Who cares?
Not for long.
Just get out there and just, start seeing what's going to work for you.
Yeah. Try new things, but also be okay with not only being uncomfortable, but also being okay with failure.
I'm going to say something here. Be honest with your comfort level at the beginning, and also the reality of midlife, and you don't know this yet because you're not there. At this point in life, boomers have done a lot of things really well. We've been very successful typically in our careers, raising children, our marriages. We might have a good tennis or golf game.
Own a house.
We're good at a bunch of stuff. We don't like the idea of failure. We haven't failed at anything since we were maybe your age. So it is that is another stopping point for people, is that feel that, like when I walked into the studio when I first met you. Absolutely, I was just like, wow, okay, I'm here. And in my mind, I literally had to say to myself, I belong here. Mm-hmm. I can't worry about what everybody else here is doing. I belong here. You just have to get out of your own way, because we are not people who like to fail. Mm-hmm. At this point in life, we haven't failed at a lot by this point. I mean, everything, we've kind of found our comfort zone. We found our lanes. We found our friends. Mm-hmm. And we do what we do. But this is going to completely take you to a place that you haven't been, probably for years.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, as a millennial, I don't speak for all millennials, but as a millennial, as someone who, likes to try different things and explore stuff, definitely failed a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. It's not fun, but when you step back from it a little bit and and the more you fail.
But what do you call a failure? What do you think when you think of something you failed at? What was that thing? What was the thing you failed at? Was it really a failure, or was it just that you didn't like it, or it wasn't your jam, or whatever? Was it really a failure?
I think I do view stuff like that, like things that aren't my thing, as a form of failure, right? Because you tried and you didn't stick with it, right? So I guess there are different ways of looking at what failure is.
A failure is something that you didn't do well, that you wanted to do well. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, or you were in a competition and you didn't get first. You didn't win.
Yeah, all right, well.
That's kind of a pretty obvious,
okay,
quote unquote failure.
All right.
Did a lot of that. But I think
But again, think about that. That was progress, because you were doing something.
Right, right. But there's that old quote that that even if you didn't get first, you still learned from your mistakes. I guess mistakes also could be interchanged with failure. If you didn't get it right the first time, you usually learn from it. People who usually win a lot, don't actually really learn from they learn how to win because whatever they were doing was working. But I think people who fail or don't win at things also learn a lot about how to get better. And I think that can be a little bit more motivating because you're trying to work up to do something, as opposed to trying to maintain something or defend your title or whatnot. So we like underdogs.
I love underdogs.
Right? Because the implication is that they've failed at something, or that they're not the best, or they've had to work a little bit harder, right? As opposed to the reigning champion who is kind of sort of quote unquote sitting on their laurels.
So to wrap up this episode, phase 2, getting ready for change, there will never be a day where you say, okay, that's done. The done is that you're changing over the months and weeks and days and hours from making all the small changes to your habits that you're adjusting to get to the big results. It's really, really good work. There's never an end date to that. So just kind of saying that to yourself also helps you not feel pressure. It's just, it's never, you're never going to tick a box. You're just going to evolve.
The sooner you accept that you're never going to be done, you will hit milestones, you will hit progress, but that you will never actually be able to go back to the way you were.
Oh, who wants to?
The better it'll be the better it'll be for you.
Yeah.
Because if you keep thinking that, you're never going to enjoy it. You're always going to be forcing it.
Yeah.
You're never going to be actionlessly taking action.
Just taking action.
Right? You're not going to be, it's not going to be a reflex anymore. It's going to be an action.
Yeah.
Right? A reaction.
Yeah.
Right? So accept that you're never going to be done.
Yeah. And it's okay, because there's no done. You're getting better and better all the time, literally every week, every month.
That's right.
It's so empowering.
As we age, there are new definitions of what getting better means.
Oh gosh.
So whatever getting better meant at 20 for me is not anymore what getting better at 30 means for me, or 50.
Right.
Because we're trying to be the best of ourselves at any age.
Yeah, we're just trying to live well.
Right? We are not stagnant people. No. We are organisms. We are living things. We are always changing and growing.
And we honestly, from my viewpoint, it's just living well.
That's right.
Being able to do the things that I like to do and want to do. That's really just huge for me.
Right.
But
if you think about other organisms as well, right?
Yeah.
If, squirrels or, cats or trees, if trees could, do you think trees ever be like, nah, I'm tall enough, I'm good? No. They're trying to get as high as they possibly can.
Oh my God.
Right? Do you think a tree ever thinks of it to itself like, oh man, when am I ever going to stop growing?
I don't think
or getting better.
I don't think a tree.
Okay,
thinks.
well, just.
But
that serves my point, is that they just grow because that's what they do, and they know it's good for them, and they know that's going to give them the best advantage to get nutrients and to survive and whatnot. Be a tree.
But seriously, folks, and finally, I'll say that if you are someone that is leaning towards, or you actually decide to work with a professional, and I really hope that you do, one thing I would just advise is please be honest with them. Don't lie and minimize details about your current lifestyle. Like, if you know that you really kind of struggle with eating, too much, or snacking, or how much you might drink when you go out, or on a Friday night or whatever, just be direct and be honest, because right at the beginning of this relationship, you're going to be able to get the best from them. And you're going to be able to get the best from them because they're going to work by meeting you where you are. Don't walk into a gym or walk into any place thinking you need to be any place other than exactly where you are. And that's really, it's uncomfortable.
It's hard.
Like, it's hard. I hated telling you about my weight, because I was the heaviest of my life in this phase. And I just kind of hated talking about that. But I needed to talk about that because that was super important to me. And then it also was a freedom because you were the only person that I confided in about how much that stressed me and bothered me. Be honest. Find a person you feel safe with. And then they'll set up a plan based around like exactly where you are. Today's quote, I think, is just kind of perfect for what we've been talking about, and it's a quote by a gentleman named Art Williams. The quote is, "I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. I'm telling you it's going to be worth it."
Boom.
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 So that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to the second episode of You Want Me to Do What? With Karen
and Cooper. You can find me on Instagram at @pen_dragon fitness.
And KK, myself, you can find me at winkwink854.
If you're loving the podcast, we'd be honored if you'd go ahead and like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If at any point in this episode you related to something we talked about, we'd love to hear from you. So please share your story in the comments on YouTube, or drop a line on our Instagram post for this episode. Until next time,
this is KK.
This is Cooper.
Bye.
Bye.